The day was a masterpiece of curated triumph from Miles Prescott. The sun, high over the Carolina coast, seemed to shine solely to illuminate his victory. This was the day he, a man of immense wealth and influence, would once again become a husband. But not merely a husband. He was claiming ownership of a young, startlingly beautiful woman's destiny. The wedding was an affair of legendary opulence, worthy of a crown. The grand ballroom of his Hampton estate was drowning in a sea of white orchids and blood-red roses. Crystal glasses chimed in time with the live orchestra, and tables groaned under the weight of delicacies flown in from every corner of the globe. Every guest felt like a witness to a historic event, a coronation of power. And all of it served a single, brutal purpose: to dominate, to conquer, to break. Miles had spared no expense. He had poured a fortune into ensuring every moment of this evening would be seared into memory as a monument to his will. But behind the dazzling spectacle lay a cruel truth. This was not his first marriage, and, more importantly, his chosen bride, Eleanor, a long-legged, radiant blonde with eyes full of a deep, haunting sorrow, felt no joy. Her smile was a painted mask, her dances as mechanical as a marionette's. In the depths of her gaze was a resignation as profound as that of a prisoner walking to the gallows. Why would a young, vibrant woman, adored by men her own age, agree to marry a man 42 years her senior? The guests whispered behind their hands, trading guesses like poker chips. It has to be the money, some insisted. She's after his status, echoed others. But no one knew the real reason. No one except Eleanor herself, and, of course, Miles Prescott. They were not bound by love, or passion, or even a craving for comfort. They were bound by the past. A dark, heavy past filled with betrayal and pain. When the last toast had finally faded, when the bandleader's voice fell silent, when the final guests, blinded by champagne and spectacle, had departed, a heavy silence descended. It was a silence that breathed vengeance. The newlyweds made their way to the main house, not just a home, but a colossal mansion perched on a cliffside like a castle in a Gothic novel. Inside was a study in obscene luxury: antique furniture, old masters in gilded frames, and mirrors that reflected a gilded cage. And the bedroom. Oh, the bedroom. A vast four-poster bed with a heavy canopy, silk sheets, and candles that flickered like the eyes of watching demons. Eleanor followed her groom like a captive. Her long veil trailed behind her on the polished marble, sweeping over stains of wine and grime left from the celebration. She didn't notice. Her mind was paralyzed with a fear so deep it was numb. Miles, however, walked with his head held high, the smile of a victor playing on his lips. In his eyes was the gleam of absolute power and a near primal satisfaction.
"There's nowhere left for you to run," he thought. "You're mine, now and forever." As they entered the bedroom, he turned to her, and his gaze turned to ice. "You've dirtied yourself like a pig in its sty," he hissed, his eyes drilling into hers. "You are now the wife of Miles Prescott. Have you forgotten? You will act accordingly. Purity, order, modesty, that is your domain now, just as it was before. Just as it was when you were honest." She remained silent, her trembling hands struggling with the intricate clasps of her wedding gown. He sent her to the bathroom to wash herself clean, as if one could ever scrub away sins with mere water. When she emerged, wrapped in a robe, her hair wet and plastered to her skin, her heart froze. On the center of the vast bed lay two objects. The first was a worn envelope with yellowed edges. The second was an old, faded photograph of two teenagers sitting by a river, laughing, carefree. On the back, a scrawl in faded ink: "Silas and Ellie, forever." "Darling," came Miles's mocking voice from behind her. "Surprised? I told you you'd regret it, didn't I? I told you everything comes back around, that nothing goes unpunished." Eleanor staggered. Her face turned as white as the marble floors. Her eyes rolled back and she crumpled to the floor in a dead faint. He didn't move an inch to help her. He simply looked down at her, a predator surveying his vanquished prey. In his gaze there was no pity, no compassion, only a cold, calculated revenge. But to understand this moment, one must look back 20 years. There were no mansions, no millions, no masks back then. There was only a river in rural Georgia, the moon reflecting on the water like a silver coin, and two teenagers desperately in love. Silas and Ellie, two hearts beating as one. He was the son of a hard-working mechanic, a boy who had lost his mother young. She was an orphan from a trailer park, raised by a negligent aunt, a girl with fire in her eyes and dreams of a life far grander. "It was hard to get away," she'd whisper, laughing. "My aunt was on the warpath again, but I'm sneakier. I stuffed my bed with pillows and climbed out the window." "You're a genius," Silas would marvel, pulling her close. "Nothing will ever tear us apart, right?" "Never, Si," she'd answered, nestling into his shoulder. "We'll get married the day we turn 18. We'll be so happy." They spent whole nights by that river, talking of their dreams, of children, of a simple house near the water. Time flew and they barely noticed the dawn breaking.
The years passed. Silas finished high school and began working with his father in their small, struggling auto shop. Ellie took a bookkeeping course but was in no rush to get a serious job. Why should she? She had her provider. But slowly, something shifted. Her youthful love began to cool, replaced by a hunger for designer dresses, fast cars, and parties in Atlanta's high society circles. And Silas began to seem too ordinary, too simple. On the morning of their wedding day, she vanished. She left only a note, "I'm sorry, my heart belongs to another." Silas found her at the lavish home of her new lover, a portly, self-satisfied real estate developer twice her age. He stormed the door, demanding answers. He was thrown out onto the street like trash. Ellie stood at an upstairs window, looking down at him with a mocking laugh. "You'll regret this," he screamed, his heart and spirit shattered. "But by the time you do, it'll be too late." More than a decade passed. Silas and his father transformed their humble shop into Prescott Automotive, a multi-million-dollar parts manufacturer. The jilted lover had become a formidable entrepreneur. And Ellie? Her prince had quickly tired of her and cast her out. She was forced back to bookkeeping, climbing the corporate ladder with a soul heavy with shame and regret. Then one day, during a job interview at a major conglomerate, he met the CEO, Miles Prescott. He was powerful, cold, with a gaze that felt like it could freeze fire. He did not recognize the kind, weathered face of Silas's father in this stern, aged magnate. He did not recognize him, and that was her fatal mistake. Months into the job, she saw an opportunity. A brief, 5-minute window alone in the financial office. She made a decision. Despicable, yet irresistible. She embezzled funds. A lot of them. But Miles Prescott was not just a businessman. He was a hunter. He knew everything. And instead of calling the SEC and the Department of Justice, he made her a different offer. "I won't turn you in," he said calmly, tapping a folder of evidence, "but you will become my wife. You will be the mistress of my house in name only, and a servant in practice. And this file will remain with me as insurance, to ensure you never think of running." Tears streaming down her face, she agreed. She had no other choice. And so we returned to the bedroom, to the two objects on the bed. When Eleanor came to, she was not looking at an old man. She was looking at Silas.
He peeled off the thinning silver hairpiece, the false beard, the prosthetic wrinkles that aged him. Standing before her was the boy from the river, but now his eyes were filled with 2 decades of pain and hardened rage. "So," he said, his voice now his own, stripped of its feigned frailty, "shall we talk, for old time's sake?" "Forgive me," she screamed, collapsing to her knees. "Please, Silas, forgive me. I was weak and stupid and greedy." "No," he replied, his voice cold and flat. "You don't deserve forgiveness. You will serve as a lesson to anyone who thinks they can betray love for money. My father didn't want this vengeance. He wanted you to understand. He never wanted you. He still loves my mother. And your embezzlement file? I kept it. Let the world believe you married a rich old man for his fortune. Let them know you were a thief who betrayed her only chance at real love." She left. There were no more tears, no strength, no future. She returned to her cramped apartment, and the only job she could find was as a cleaning woman for a corporate office. She clung to it like a drowning woman to a splinter of wood. And now, as she mops the floors of strangers, she remembers the river, the moon, the laughter, the love, and she understands the finality of his lesson. Some mistakes can never be undone. Some tears can never be washed away. And some hearts, once broken, can never be returned. And up on the cliff, in the cold, silent mansion, the man known as Miles Prescott sits by the grand fireplace, holding the old photograph of 2 teenagers by a river. He whispers into the flames, "You did it, son. You didn't seek crude revenge. You just showed her the truth. And the truth was punishment enough."